All right, welcome back to the channel. If you've been following along, I've got a series of videos that are all about using standalone executables. So just a refresher. The few videos in between after the first one, I didn't actually create like a to-do or anything, so I didn't have like a. So basically, just to recap, if this is your first, if this is the first video that you're watching, we went over what they are. We made one and we explored how they could be useful. And then in another video we discussed, well, in that same video, so the 1 through 3 are in the first video, and then we discussed, so in that first video we discussed also how to run it in the Eclipse environment. And so this video is going to touch on that more. Then in the second video we added the console X NuGet package, and we went over. We just made like a simple, and that's from Rex Cardin, and it's available on NuGet. So we added that, and then we just went over how you could like use it and some of the basics of it. And then in the third video, we actually added some options, so that it gives the user ability to do like several things in the same application, or like maybe you want to run through like stepwise, where you want to like, get the user ID, and maybe you just want the user to be able to like do it multiple times instead of it just having like a single use, and then if you want to do it again, then you have to run the script again. So that would be an example of why you might want to do that. Or if you just have a bunch of different things that you want to do all in the same application, and you don't want to have to keep writing like more and more applications, maybe that's why. You want to have options. So anyway, so that's that video. And then in this video, I just want to, so when we're talking about how to, or when we're trying to run a standalone executable in the Eclipse environment, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. If you're on a box, I'm pretty sure you can just run it, I think, because it already has access to all of the stuff. I could be wrong, could be completely wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that you can. Because on like a test box, I'm pretty sure that we've used standalones to do like just things, and we can actually run those from the console. Like we could just pass in variables that we want from the console and let it run. So anyway, pretty sure that you can on a box. But if you're in a Citrix environment, then you have to run it on the Citrix server. So in order to do that, or the ARIA server, whatever server that your ARIA is connected to, and so to do that, you would want to put it, you would probably want to put it in like your published scripts folder or something like that, somewhere on that server, and then you would need to launch it. Well, in order to launch it, you could go to that path, like wherever that directory is, and then just double click the executable and then run it. Or you could, if you want the ease of launching it from Eclipse, you could create a plugin runner. And so that's what we're going to do in this video. So I'm going to pause it real quick. Oh, well, actually, let me just say real quick. So all we did is all that I've done so far is to create a single file plugin. And I just named it the name of my project and then added plugin runner at the end of it. And so this is just going to create that single file plugin, and then it's right here, I believe. Yeah. And so you can see this is all it is, right? And so what we're going to do, and I believe it is, I'm going to pause it for a second because I think I remember what it is, but it's been a while since I've actually written one. I have you can write a script that will create one for you, where all you do is you just give it the path, and then it will create one for you. So anyway, I'm going to pause it for a second. All right, so I think I just unpaused it. I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check. Yeah. Okay. So I couldn't figure it out just off of memory. I can't remember what it was. So I tried like system, whatever. Anyway, if you can't remember it, just Google it. So let me open up Google real quick. All right, so I've got Google open, and what we want to do is we want to figure out how to, so launch program from script, and we'll actually say C#. So here we go. Stack Overflow is the best. So process. So process. So let's try this one. Process.start. I think that will work. So let's type process and then, yep, system.diagnostics. And so we can get rid of .io. I tried that one. So all we're going to do is process.start. And then inside start, whoops. It wants a file name and then arguments. So like, I think if you want to, I think you can, let's see, we can actually, so the first one, in case you can't see it, so you can just give it a file name. So you can give it a process start info, so we could actually create some info and then just pass that object in. Or we could give it a file name, which I think is what we'll give it. And we could give it some arguments, which is nice because like if you wanted to pass it like the context arguments, you could give it that. And then if you wanted to do that, then it would be a string, and then you would, in your application, you would say if the arguments are not null, right? Or if the length of it is greater than 0, then you would split it by whatever you decide. Like maybe you write, so that's like the file name, right? And then maybe you want to give it, let's see, we'll give it a string literal, which I don't think you can actually do that, and you might be able to, but I can't remember. But just in case you can't, we'll do string.format, and then we'll give it, like let's say we wanted to say the first one, and then maybe we'll want to split it by like a semicolon, or you could do a comma. It doesn't really matter, but as long as you know what your separator is, then in your application you can actually split them by that value or by that character, and then that would give you a list of strings, and then you or like an array. Actually, I think it's an array. And then you would say, okay, well, you know exactly what you gave it, so you would know how to read it, right? Like as long as you're the one doing it, then so like maybe we want the maybe we want the patient ID, right? And then maybe we want to know if there's a structure set or a plan or a course open, right? So we could give it each of those objects. That way, those are the sorts of things that you would have open in your context. And so depending on what your script does, if you want your script to already know what the user was doing when they ran the script, then you could pass that information. So like then we would say context, because we have access to the context. So context.patient.id, right? So if the patient's not null, which I don't know if we can do that in a single file. I can't remember. You might be able to, but you could say, if the patient's not null. So, so if the patient is null, we would give it, null or something like that. And then if it's not null, then we would give it the context.patient.id, right? Since that's a string, it might be okay even if this is null, but it might throw an error. I think if you try to access a property of a null object, I'm pretty sure it will throw an error. So if you don't want your script to break, then like if the patient or you could write a method that says, get context information, and then you would validate each of your things. So you would do it in that method instead of like doing it, messily right here. So you could do that. So that would be your patient ID. And then maybe then you have your, course ID, right? So then it would be context.course.id. And then you would need to do the same thing where you validate whether or not there's a course open. And if there's not one open, then you just pass either like an empty string or a null. It doesn't really matter as long as you know what it's going to be and you're consistent every time. So anyway, so that's an example. You could pass it your context, some of the context information. But in this case, we would just need the path to the standalone executable. And we'll set that. We'll generate a field, and then we'll actually just set it, right? So it might be like, and then you might want to use an @ symbol so that you don't have to use like double the amount of escape characters. So like without the if you're new to C#, then you may need this. But if you've been doing writing code for a while, you probably figured this out already. But the backslash in a string is an escape character. So it's needed in order to, in order to actually write so you see how this close quote doesn't actually close the string. We actually need another one. The reason for that is because this escape character escaped the normal function or normal action of the character. So in order to ignore the escape, you can use an @ symbol at the front of your string, and then now it doesn't escape, right? So now that closing quotation mark actually ends the string, right? So then you would say, path to executable, right? .exe, right? So and then you would just pass it this. So then when you run this in Eclipse, so then you would place this script. So I'll open it real quick. So wherever you generated your project, remember standalone. The standalone is just in the project folder, but the actual CS file for your single file plugin gets put into this plugins folder. The project, to gain access to the API, your references and all that stuff, that gets put into the projects folder. Again, this is when you're using the script wizard, okay? And so the plugin runner, there's actually a project. You open a project, and that gives you this. That gives you access to the references, right? The DLLs for the API. And then, but the file that you would put into your scripts folder, your published scripts folder, would be in this plugins. So now if we open this, I'm just going to open it in 2019 just because I've yet to change that. And then it's just this file, right? So then you just put this you would put this into your published scripts folder, and then you would actually be able to see it when you go to tools and scripts. And then you would launch it, and then all the script would do would be to launch your executable. So that is your, this is how you can very easily, allow someone to run your program without them having to actually find the path where your program lives, right? So anyway, I hope that this was useful, and I think I can't think of anything else I wanted to go over with the standalones, but hopefully this is useful, and I will hopefully have these online quickly. So until next time.